Marvel World Unleashed, Dylan resurrects ancient gods from myth. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 71. Returning home, Matt was quite furious. After the police warrant was issued, he tried several more acts against gangsters, but each time he was filmed at the beginning of the operation and called the police. Then the police will arrive quickly. Several successive experiences forced Matt to feel angry. After some venting, Matt finally calmed down. He began to think. The current situation was something Matt had never experienced before. In the past, he always saw in some bystanders or newspapers about the horror of big capital covering the sky with one hand. But now he is finally personally experienced. United Real Estate easily relied on the media to turn the vast majority of New Yorkers into their people. In the case of the Media Plus Party Bounty announcement, Matt dares to guarantee that as long as he dares to go out as Daredevil, he will immediately welcome countless civilian reports. Even though he can jump between buildings, even if he can rely on high-speed movement to avoid the police. But in the face of countless civilian surveillance, he simply could no longer fight the evil elements as he had in the past. And Matt can be sure of one thing. That is, the police all over New York should be watching him all the time. As soon as he appeared, they would immediately arrive at the scene. He had already experienced something similar tonight. In such a situation, how should he choose? Matt called Nick Fury. Nick Fury seemed to have expected Matt's current situation, and he said calmly, "In the face of such a situation, do you still want to continue to act?" "Yes, the more so, the greater the evil behind this, and I must find out the evidence of the crime behind the United Real Estate Company." Matt himself is a jealous man. And today's incident made him and United Real Estate Company completely form a grudge. Now, he's like a shark that smells blood. The moment he does not chase his prey, he will never let go. Okay, then the most important thing you need to do now is to wait. Now the outside world is watching you closely, you need to gradually wait until the storm stabilizes before acting. I see. Nick Fury's words gave Matt a direction. After hanging up the phone, he calmed down and decided not to play Daredevil for the time being. He did not believe that popular enthusiasm would always be high. Although the short-term stimulation will make them excited, for the public, numbness and indifference are their essence. It's never too late to wait until everything calms down, as Nick Fury says. He sat cross-legged on the ground. Concentration enters a meditative state. Inside S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury looked at the many reports about Daredevil on the internet at the moment. His complexion did not change at all, and this scene was just a small meaning to him. His life as a secret agent so far has experienced more dangerous times than this. For what happened to Matt tonight, although he sympathized with it in his heart. But S.H.I.E.L.D. can't intervene in this matter. First, because S.H.I.E.L.D. still has Hydra's crooks. If he acts blindly, it will only expose the relationship between Matt and him. So far, only he and he'll know that Matt is a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Nick Fury didn't want Matt to be exposed so quickly. Second, he wanted to use this to give Matt a training experience, although Matt performed well as Daredevil, but he was still worse than what Nick Fury expected. This time, United Land's series of means against Matt can just be used as Matt's grindstone. Nick Fury couldn't help but sigh a little when he looked at the back of Matt captured in the media. He really hopes that Matt can grow up as soon as possible with this blow. Otherwise, when faced with some unpredictable crisis in the future, Matt is not enough now. New York, Brooklyn. Leon, who had seen Wilson and Matt on both sides of the evening, felt a little happy. The corners of his mouth smiled, and his eyes were filled with inexplicable expectation, which made him look like a person who was afraid that the world would not be chaotic. For Wilson, the night devil in his dream was just a shadow of Leon's transformation. The dialogue with Wilson during this period was also made up by Leon remotely. However, what is said about Nyarlathotep is true. In the original, Daredevil is indeed one of the countless incarnations of this god. But now, he still needs to create a real night devil. This time the fabrication only needs a phantom shadow. Wilson seemed to have taken the bait. Sometimes human emotions are like that. People who have always been strict before, but when it comes to their loved ones, this rigor will turn into panic. Under this panic, no matter how outrageous it is, as long as it involves the hope of the loved one, then they will all choose to believe. When Leon connects the words Vanessa with resurrection, it is destined that Wilson will persistently chase this hope, like a fish that bites the bait. But Leon is not simply playing with Wilson. In the land prepared for Wilson, he did give Wilson the opportunity to fulfill his wishes. But it depends on whether the other party can really grasp it. As for Matt, Leon was pretty sure that Matt would inevitably be mixed in with the next fabrication. Leon was already looking forward to absorbing the influence point from the other party that should have been settled a long time ago. Leon looked away at the dark sky outside. At night, there is not a trace of stars in sight. Some are just layers of clouds obscuring the sky. The bright moon in the center was about to be swallowed by the black cloud. This oppressive scene is like a harbinger of what is coming. Sure enough. Heavy rain followed closely. Another few days passed. Wilson's gangster war was on the verge of ending. In the face of his huge army, the other gangsters in New York were useless even if they wanted to resist. He was on the verge of victory. The underground world of New York is about to become his hunting ground. But even so, his face was still unhappy. This puzzled his secretary, James Wesley. Although Wilson is an extremely deep person, this does not mean that he is without emotions. In the old times, when he encounters something pleasant, he also laughs. But Wilson's consistent look in recent days made Wesley feel strange. He couldn't help but wonder if something had happened to Wilson. But when he tried to side-click to ask, this majestic and tall man behaved impeccably. This made Wesley feel helpless, and then he gave up to explore the secret. As Wilson's secretary for a long time, he knew one thing very well. Too many people who go to find out about gold and secrets will not end well. Wilson was now standing in front of the giant floor-to-ceiling windows of his office. The scene of New York spread out in front of him like a picture scroll. Such a condescending scene can easily evoke ambition in the man's heart. Not long since. It was also one of Wilson's greatest desires. But now, he has no intention of caring about the slow scroll in front of him. Even the underground world that was about to be officially unified by him could not attract his attention. His face was a little pensive, and his eyes were filled with an inexplicable worry and sadness. Since that day in a dream encounter with the monster named Daredevil, Wilson never dreamed of Vanessa again. The recurring dream had previously irritated Wilson, but now when the dream disappeared, the irritability and tension in his heart were even stronger. "Wesley, haven't you found anything about those two names?" Wilson asked calmly. The answer to him was an apology from Wesley. This made Wilson take a deep breath. If at the end of the dream of meeting the Night Devil, he was convinced that a miracle would happen, now he is tormented by a contradiction between doubt and perseverance. He didn't want to or admit that it was a simple dream. Because if it's really just a dream, that meant his Vanessa would never wake up again. Just then, Wesley's cell phone rang. He answered the phone, and then heard the other side say, "Mr. James, our construction site in Massachusetts collapsed, and there is a cave here that can't be filled with grout. What should we do next?" Episode 72. "Okay, I'll take care of it." When Wesley hung up the phone with a displeased face, Wilson turned his head slightly and asked, "What happened?" "It's nothing, it's just that there was a collapse accident at a construction site below us. What a bunch of idiots, call me for this kind of thing. Just a simple collapse shouldn't call you, right? They said that a cave appeared at the construction site because of a landslide, and no matter how grout was filled inside, I guess I must have encountered some kind of underground stalactite cave." Wilson now is sensitive to the word cave. He asked, "What kind of cave?" Wesley was a little surprised. After all, the other party would not care about this kind of thing before. But he immediately remained calm and continued, "I'll get pictures of the scene for you now." He made another call, and a few moments later, pictures of the construction site reached his phone. Wesley handed it to Wilson. And when Wilson saw the picture of the construction site, his eyes immediately became solemn, mixed with a certain surprise and incredible 587 look. This puzzled Wesley. "Mr. Fisk, is there anything weird here?" Wilson suppressed his mood at this time, and he said in a heavy tone, "Seal off this construction site, don't let anyone in and out, I will go to the site in person." These words raised Wesley's puzzlement to surprise. But as a qualified secretary, quiet and obedient are the most basic qualities. He bowed his head slightly and said, "Yes, Mr. Fisk." He then exited the office. Wilson once again looked at New York City in the distance. This time, his expression was no longer as serious as before. A smile appeared on the corners of his mouth, and there was a certain hope in his eyes. And everything that caused this change. It's just a picture from Wesley's phone. The landscape was exactly the same as Wilson's previous dream. The rumble of helicopters rang out over the land. This is Massachusetts. When the surrounding grass was blown down by the strong wind, the huge helicopter finally landed slowly. Duh. Accompanied by a crisp, metallic sound. The doors of the helicopter cabin were opened. Then a man who for a normal person can definitely be called a giant walked down from it. When he left the helicopter completely, the entire body of the helicopter trembled. Immediately afterwards, a white man wearing an expensive suit and glasses stepped down from it. A group of security guards followed him and jumped out of the plane. The white man stood beside Wilson and looked at the scene in front of him. It was a construction site that had ceased to work. Construction vehicles are quietly parked in it, bunkers one after another, and cement bags that are stacked somewhere. It all looks exactly like a normal construction site. But in the middle of the construction site, there is a high cliff. At the bottom of the cliff, there is a dark and bottomless cave. On the edge of that cliff, there is also a forest. Wilson looked at the scene in front of him and couldn't help but think of his previous dream scene. How similar they are. At this moment, Wesley spoke. According to our plan, this is to be a suburban retreat, and that cliff is the focus of our construction, and the forest next to it we plan. Well, I'm not here to pay attention to this. Wilson interrupted Wesley's briefing. Wesley obediently responded, and then remained silent. He could see that Wilson didn't really want to talk at this time. Come with me. Yes. The two began to walk towards the cliff. Security guards also walked around the two. Finally, they came to the cave. Wilson looked at the cave in front of him. It was real darkness, and the sunlight outside was bright, but it couldn't illuminate the slightest bit of it. It's like a monster's big mouth. Open, waiting for the entry of prey. Then it will be swallowed into the endless darkness. Even though it was daytime, Wilson and Wesley still felt a chill at the entrance of the cave. It's not just the coldness of the body's appearance due to temperature. It is the coldness that comes from the inside of the body, as if there is a big cold hand holding their heart and constantly blowing cold air on it. Wesley swallowed. Just as he was about to say something, Wilson spoke. Wait for me here. Wesley looked shocked, and he hurriedly asked. Mr. Fisk, are you going to go in? Wilson glanced at him, then nodded. Wesley hesitated a little when he saw this, and his intuition told him about the ominousness and danger of the cave in front of him. After getting tangled, he still opened his mouth to persuade. Mr. Fisk, why don't you let the team go ahead and investigate? Wesley's words were not agreed with by Wilson. He was still insistent on going in by himself. This made Wesley feel extremely confused, but now that Wilson had made up his mind, he didn't have to stop it. He knew that the decision of the man in front of him would never change because of outsiders. And the one who can change the other person's mind. Already dead. Wilson looked at the cave in front of him and took a deep breath. How could he not feel the danger and ominous aura lurking behind this cave? But there were some things he couldn't say to Wesley. Just like the previous dream, or the invisible attraction of the cave in front of him. It invisibly beckoned Wilson to step into it. It's like a demon lurking in the dark has set his sights on Wilson. Wilson's mind couldn't help but think of the terrifying monster. Daredevil. It was the first time Wilson, who had never feared anyone, felt such awe and fear. If you have a choice. He never wanted to go near that demon's territory. But behind this is his beloved. For Vanessa, Wilson dares to challenge anything. Okay, I'll go in. After saying these last words to Wesley, Wilson stepped into the dark abyss. In just a few steps, Wesley could no longer see Wilson. He couldn't see even the slightest outline. This made Wesley have some bad thoughts in his heart. Because the scene in front of you is too weird. It looked as if Wilson had been swallowed up by endless darkness. Wilson moved forward in silence. He didn't know how long he had been walking or in which direction he was going. The voice coming from his heart just kept him going. He will not be afraid of this boundless darkness. Because he is also a member of this dark world. Evil and weirdness will not easily overwhelm him, and he just wants to find the mysterious stone at this time. Finally, he saw that familiar glimmer. It was as bright as thick venous blood. The dark red light became Wilson's direction. He quickened the pace. A moment later, he came to the shimmering light. When he saw the piece that had appeared in his dream, he felt the urge to yell and vent. but he eventually restrained himself. The tripartite hedron floats faintly on the cylindrical altar. The surrounding darkness had an extremely evil 0.8 evil and distorted aura under its strange dark red light. Wilson didn't bother with that. He slowly stretched out his hand and touched the triangular octahedron. In the dream, it was precisely because he touched this trilateral hedron that he saw the terrifying monster. Now, he longs to see each other again. But when he actually touched the crystal, the monster he was expecting did not appear. But he wasn't disappointed. Because he heard the voice of the monster. The voice echoed in his heart. If the voice of the monster, which is indistinguishable to mortals, is translated into English, it is only a short sentence. But when anyone hears this, they will be crazy and excited. Likewise, no mortal can reject or deny this statement. For that is the deepest source of the human heart, the ultimate desire. It is saying, "What wish do you want to fulfill?" Episode 73. When Wilson came out of the cave, no one knew what he saw inside. Even Wesley has no way of knowing half a point. When Wilson chose to move his home from New York to this construction site outside of Massachusetts, anyone close to him was extremely surprised by this. Wesley couldn't help but try to ask the other person. But the answer he received was only Wilson's silence. This strange change has made many people curious about the mysterious cave in this construction site. They wanted to go in, but they were afraid of Wilson. Since Wilson came out of the cave, he has taken the cave to the extreme. Not only did he move his residence near the cave, but he even sent his top-secret henchmen to station here to guard the cave. Under such protection, anyone who tried to enter the cave would be killed on the spot. These are not scaring words. It's something that has already happened. Someone tried to get close to the cave, and then he died. At this moment, in the makeshift dwelling next to the cave, Wilson clasped his hands together. He took a deep breath, with a certain look of fear in his eyes. 3 days had passed since he came out of that cave. But the 26 cuts he experienced in the cave that day were still spinning in his head. The moment when that demagogic word from the devil sounded in his heart, he realized what was behind the mysterious partial trihedron represented. What wish do you want to fulfill? Faced with this somewhat illusory statement, Wilson did not immediately give firm faith in it. Instead, I did an experiment first. Deep in the dark cave, he prayed to the trilateral octahedron that shimmered with a dark red light. After the prayer, a stack of the most ordinary $100 bills appeared in his hand. In exchange, Wilson lost a ring he was carrying. When this scene really happened before Wilson's eyes, Wilson immediately became wary and in awe. He had to seal it off. This was the first desire that grew within him. Wilson is not a good man, and he wants to ban here for one and only one reason. That is greed and ambition for everything. Such a powerful thing must not be obtained by anyone other than him. If only here, let anyone other than him know. Wilson could guarantee that the world would be chaotic because of it. Just think about it. When a place where wishes can really be fulfilled is so naked in front of a person, who can resist the temptation? Don't talk about ordinary people. Even the most powerful leaders today cannot resist this temptation to reach the depths of their souls. Instead of making the world chaotic, let him be the real one who can lead everything. And then the second desire that breeds. It is the desire for Vanessa's resurrection. He tried to put this wish into practice with the mysterious partial trihedron. And the mysterious and evil crystal did give him an answer. Knock, knock, knock. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Wilson said calmly, "In." Then James Wesley walked in. He holds a statistical sheet in his hand. Then he said, "Mr. Fisk, according to your instructions, we have captured 312 homeless people so far. These homeless people have no identity information and no household registration certificate. Even if they disappear, no one will care." "Very well, keep moving." "Yes, Mr. Fisk." James Wesley put away the statistics table in his hand. He should have gone out at this time, but his face appeared to be speechless. "Say it, Wesley, I know you have something to say." "Okay, Mr. Fisk, please forgive me for my curiosity, but may I ask you what you want to catch these bums for?" Wilson's eyes narrowed slightly, and an extremely cold look flashed in them. He got up from his seat and walked over to Wesley's side. Such an action made Wesley suddenly a little scared. Ever since Wilson came out of the cave 3 days ago, Wesley had been acutely aware of the madness burning in the depths of Wilson's eyes. And Wilson's various behaviors in the follow-up also made Wesley feel strange. Many things Wilson no longer left to Wesley. This gave Wesley a feeling that he was going to be abandoned. At this time, looking at the huge figure walking in front of him, the worry and fear in Wesley's heart became more and more vigorous. But just then, Wilson gently patted Wesley's shoulder. He said in a very rare gentle tone, "Wesley, I know you've been a little upset lately, maybe it's my behavior that makes you feel a sense of distress, but I want you to calm down. Remember, you will always be my most trusted subordinate, no matter what time. So, don't ask too much about these things right now. You just have to do your best to do them well, and when the time comes, you'll know everything." Wesley was somewhat flattered by Wilson's move. He hurriedly said, "I will, Mr. Fisk." "Okay, now go about your business." Wesley then walked out of the room. Wilson sat down at the table again. He reached out and stroked the photo clip on the table. Inside, Vanessa's smile was as warm as the sun. Wilson couldn't help but smile as he looked at the other party. "Vanessa, we'll meet soon," Wilson said softly. He will not forget the quid pro quo offered by the tripartite octahedron. In 7 days, 1,000 lives. It only takes 1,000 lives to get his Vanessa back. It's worth it. New York at this time. Matt stands at the top of a building wearing Daredevil's battle suit. In the past few days, he has not gone to the practice of chivalry. But due to his past habits, he still can't help but keep an eye on the city at night. Then he discovered something. In the past 3 days, the number of gangster firefights has decreased significantly. Is it because the territory has been unified? Matt's heart couldn't help but guess. Either way, the reduction in firefight is always good. In this way, the number of accidental injuries to civilians will be much reduced. It seems that without me, everything is going in a good direction. Matt was a little self-deprecating. But at this moment, his keen ears suddenly allowed him to hear a cry for help somewhere. He frowned slightly, and then a few flashes came to the top of the place where the chaos occurred. It is a narrow and shady alley. It has always been the home of homeless people. The homeless people will live in groups here. Generally speaking, even the urban management will not easily manage them. Because this group of homeless people not only does not have the slightest oil and water to squeeze on their bodies, but also smells bad one by one. Who would want to come to the trouble of such a group of people? 6:33, but now, Matt saw such a scene. A group of apparently well-trained black-clad members are grabbing the alley man, dressed like SWAT and wearing black helmets on their heads. Whenever they catch one, they shock them unconscious. Then throw it into the truck parked at the entrance of the alley. This surprised Matt. He was keenly aware that something was wrong behind this. This is by no means an ordinary kidnapping. Matt was extremely sure of it in his heart. So he started his job for the first time after several days of downtime. He jumped down from the sky. Boom! The heavy sound hit the ground, which immediately attracted the attention of everyone present. Daredevil! With the exclamations of the homeless men, the members dressed in black immediately took out their pistols from their waist. Then came the shooting without hesitation. Matt kept moving through the rain of bullets, and in an instant these people were defeated in front of him. With curiosity, Matt lifted the helmets of these men. He had thought that these people would be some kind of military men. But when he saw their true faces, Matt was stunned. They have some kind of mark tattooed on their necks, and their faces are adorned with lip studs. If Matt guessed correctly, the real identity of these people is actually a member of a gang. But if it's a gangster, so how to explain their well-trained marksmanship and formation? For a while, Matt's heart gave birth to a lot of confusion. 10th more on the shelves. Today's codeword code put the forearm code swollen, and it hurts when touched. Gee, hope tomorrow will be good. Episode 74. In an unmanned underground passage, Matt splashed the black-clad member in front of him with a bucket of water. Awake? The black-clad member shook his head, and he looked at Matt in front of him, his eyes full of horror. Shit! He cursed angrily, and then tried to struggle. But unfortunately, Matt put a very strong shackle on the other party. After realizing that it was impossible for him to escape, the black-clad member's heart fell into fear. If it had been before, he would not have been afraid. Because at that time, no matter who knew, Daredevil would not kill people. But not now. Daredevil has changed. Now, tell me your identity, and by the way, Tell me your purpose for capturing the homeless. Matt said calmly. The black-clad member vomited clean on the spot. When he knew that behind the other party was United Real Estate, Matt's face was a little solemn. He didn't expect that he was inadvertently facing the United Company again. It is true that new hatred and old hatred have come together. You said you don't know your purpose in capturing the homeless man? Matt grabbed the collar of the man in front of him and asked coldly. The other party immediately nodded frantically. Matt knew by listening to the other person's heart beating that the other person was not lying. But because of this, the strangeness and solemnity in his heart became more and more exuberant. I'm done, can you let me go? I want to go to jail. The gangster's words interrupted Matt's thoughts. He glanced at the other party, and then said, Don't worry, I won't kill you, your usefulness is still great, and you will be indispensable when you testify against Wilson in the future. What? You asked me to call Duracell? Damn, he'll kill me. You choose for yourself, will you die under me now, or will you die under him in the future? This. Matt ignored the other party, he called Nick Fury and reported the situation tonight. Nick Fury on the other end of the phone was also a little stunned. What did Wilson collect these homeless people for? Is it to conduct some human experiments? Nick Fury's mind instantly had many conspiracies, but he also said, I will send someone to take the person into S.H.I.E.L.D., and the matter about Wilson will continue to be investigated by you. If you need manpower, I can send someone over to help you. No, I can do it alone, it may not be convenient to have one more person. Okay, then you should be careful. After hanging up the phone, Matt simply stunned the gang member in front of him. Someone from S.H.I.E.L.D. would come and take this person next, and he wasn't going to waste any more time. He walked out of the underground passage and then jumped to the top of a tall building somewhere. He began to perceive the situation intently. According to the gangster's words, there were many squads that acted with them. Matt wanted to break them down one by one while trying to figure out something crucial from them. Soon, he sensed another scene of the homeless arrest that was taking place. His figure immediately rushed in that direction. While Matt was operating, Wesley also received calls from his subordinates. Daredevil? Okay, I see. Upon learning that Daredevil was beginning to interfere with their actions, Wesley immediately went to Wilson's room to report on them. Wilson's face was gloomy, and his eyes were filled with obvious killing intent. He snorted coldly and said, First bring the homeless man you have caught so far here, and set off overnight. In addition, let the hunting squad scatter in various neighborhoods of New York for operation, no less than 10 miles from each other. I don't believe Daredevil still has the ability to teleport. At the same time, let the media report Daredevil again. The reward from the police side will be increased to $1 million, and I will let the whole New York people deal with him. By the way, give another order to those squad members, as long as they can hurt Daredevil, they will directly reward $100,000, and if anyone can kill Daredevil, reward $100,000. This bounty is also valid for any member of the underground world. As Wilson, who has long since jumped to the level of big capital, his means of dealing with the enemy have long been not simple guns and ammunition. In this age of materialism, the price of $1 million is enough for many people to die for. Money is the real weapon of this era. Wesley immediately gave Wilson's orders. With the spread of news one after another, the whole of New York became a sensation. Whether it is the world of ordinary people or the underground world, they're all crazy about that $1 million. For a while, countless people poured out of their homes, and they began to frantically search for Daredevil. Matt is also aware of his current situation. This made Matt, who had received the same blow once, feel the gap between him and Wilson again. It's simply a dimensionality reduction blow. The heat that had fallen before not only returned at this moment, but even increased more than 10 times. There was a lot of talk on social media about Daredevil. There are some professional teams. But these are not really troubles. The most troublesome thing is Wilson's reward for the underworld. For criminals in the underground world, their methods against Matt will not be as gentle as ordinary people. Soon Matt tasted a pain. When he tried to tie up the gangsters in front of him and take them somewhere for interrogation, as before, the other party actually set off a bomb that he didn't know where to get it. With a loud rumbling, Matt's figure suddenly flew out backwards, and his body, which had never been injured since he believed in the Lord of Yellow, also appeared in a charred area. Although the area is being quickly repaired, the madness of this group of gangsters still makes Matt shudder. But it also made him more aware of one thing. That is behind the kidnapping of homeless people by the United Company. There must be a huge secret hidden. How else could Wilson give such crazy orders? Didn't he know that $1 million would throw the whole of New York into chaos? He must know. But even so, he still wanted to stop Matt from continuing his investigation. This is enough to prove that Wilson is planning something big. Strong, Matt, who had a firm conviction, continued his previous action. The more so, the more he can't give up. He must find out what Wilson is hiding behind it. Shield. Nick Fury looked at the news coming from the New York police. Tonight's New York is in a state of madness. Millions of people took to the streets in search of Daredevil. Such a huge scale is unimaginable, and then something happened that someone took advantage of this opportunity to make trouble. A large number of blacks began to take the opportunity to smash and rob stores, buy $0, and so on. A large number of police forces are already stretched thin simply to maintain order among these ordinary people. Not to mention the criminals of the underground world. Thugs, thieves, fraudsters, addicts. The criminals began to keep looking for Matt. And along with their sorties, the scene of the shootout soon appeared. The constant sound of gunfire has brought chaos in New York to a new level. Zhao, ordinary people, who were already arrogant because of the crowd, took advantage of the chaos of the shooting to make more excessive behavior. Even robbery of the police took place. In this case, even the sound of explosives continued to sound. This directly adds firewood to the chaotic New York. Rumble. It's like gasoline meeting an open flame. Tonight's New York completely exploded. And the cause of all this? It was Matt's actions. Nick Fury frowned and finished reading the entire live report. To sum it up simply, New York has become a battlefield in the Middle East. There is almost no missile bombing. Majafak. Why is this so all? Nick Fury cursed angrily, and then pressed the emergency communication button. Natasha, come to my office right now. Nick Fury knew that it was no longer enough to just count on Matt. He must send foreign aid. Today's first change. Episode 75. So the current mess in New York is actually caused by your people? When Natasha learned the cause and effect from Nick Fury, her face couldn't help but look a little strange. It looks like you want to laugh, but don't dare to laugh. Nick Fury stroked his dark head and sighed deeply. God can testify, I just wanted the other party to undergo a test. I really didn't expect things to come to this point. Well, newcomers are like this. Natasha picked up Matt's photo and smiled. The imperative now is that we figure out what Wilson is hiding, and if it's just a general basket, he can't do this kind of behavior that would obviously disturb New York. Nick Fury said solemnly. Okay, leave it to me, I'll go to his office and take a good look. Faced with Natasha's confidence, Nick Fury reminded. Natasha, I believe in your intelligence-gathering abilities, but if you are discovered by Wilson, remember, but try to fight the other side, that guy is a monster, shoot directly and run away, this is the wisest choice. Okay. Natasha answered and swayed out of Nick Fury's office. Nick Fury sighed silently. He glanced again through the satellite at New York at this time. Crowds of fighting, burning fires, rising smoke. All this made Nick Fury think about his experiences on the battlefield when he was younger. That's really like. On the other side, Brooklyn, New York. Leon looked at the smashing, robbing, and burning outside his store, and couldn't help but sigh. What else can he say? It's American. This scenery is really beautiful. Just then, a group of blacks broke into Leon's bookstore. You see, you patronize and have fun, and you forgot to hide the enchantment for the bookstore. Liang's smiling words made the group of blacks very confused, but it didn't matter, they immediately pointed their guns at Liang. But before they could speak, their bodies slowly turned into gray grains of sand and dissipated. Alas, this is the second time I have been robbed. Liang sighed. And along with his emotion, an invisible enchantment framed his bookstore. Then he sat down and poured himself a glass of water. Now, he wants to continue to enjoy the play that started because of him. Suburban construction site in Massachusetts. Wesley reported the current situation in New York to Wilson. Wilson took a deep breath. Seriously, if he could, he really didn't want the situation to come to this point. He originally just wanted to quietly kidnap some homeless people. Anyway, those homeless people will not care. But who would have thought that Matt would get involved? Wilson was worried that Matt would investigate something from it. Not afraid of 10,000, just in case. If it was really guessed by the other party, it was the situation that Wilson did not want to see. The lesser of the two powers. Wilson would rather make New York so chaotic that Matt can't get out of it, rather than expose the contents of the cave. Mr. Fisk, what are we going to do now? The chaos in New York right now is not something Wesley can make a decision on alone. He had to ask the man in front of him. Wilson cut a cigar, put it in his mouth, and simply took a sip. In the smoke of the cigar, he said, "How many homeless people have we caught now?" "As of this evening, there are 403. Wesley's words made Wilson think for a moment, and after a moment he said, "Since it's all so messy, it's normal for some people to disappear, right?" "I see," Wesley said softly. Wilson then went on to say, "Did the car with the homeless man leave before?" "Yes, already off." "How long will it take to get here?" "At 60 hours per hour, it would take 6 hours. Wesley replied. "Good, then let New York mess around for another 12 hours. For those extra 6 hours, I hope the number of people can make up to 1,000. Wilson slammed the cigar he had smoked only a few puffs into the ashtray. At this moment, the aura emanating from his body was as arrogant and fierce as an overlord who looked at everything. Wesley pushed his glasses, and there was a chill in his eyes. "I see." Then Wesley walked out of the office. He took out his mobile phone, dialed a number, and said indifferently. Duracell spoke, "New York is not chaotic enough now, let our people appear, I hope this chaos can last at least 12 hours. "Yes, Mr. James. Also, give notice to the hunting squad to target the person who has fallen behind." "Okay." In the end, the bounty for Daredevil rose to $5 million. Yes. This phone call with Wesley was over. CGDC, the already chaotic and unseemly situation in New York has escalated again. Terrorists who did not know where they came from began to shoot indiscriminately in the city, accompanied by the explosion of incendiary bombs and grenades. Boom. The constant sound of explosions made New York at this time look like a Chinese summer celebrating the Spring Festival. Then, due to the indiscriminate collision of some drunk drivers, New York's transportation system also became paralyzed. In such a chaotic scene, from time to time, some people who are left alone will be knocked unconscious and taken away by a group of people dressed in black. But because the situation was too chaotic, no one saw it. But even if they see it, they won't care. Now everyone is running for their own lives, where can they have time to take care of these? And at the same time, because Matt's bounty rose to $5 million, those already crazy criminals are even more crazy. Disorderly. 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 How can New York at this time be described in 3 garbled words? It's like the Pacific Ocean with a tsunami blowing up. Under that terrifying appearance, the bottomless underwater vortex is devouring everything. Leong, who was looking at the chaos of New York through the void, suddenly wanted to laugh out loud for some reason. All this reminded him of a short story in the original book of the grammar system. Nyarlathotep. Inside is the creation of a chaotic city that Nyarlathotep has played with. How similar this moment is to that moment. The cause of that confusion in the novel is Nyarlathotep. In reality, it was Leong who caused all this in front of him. What is the difference between him at this moment and Nyarlathotep? Matt frowned tightly and looked at New York in front of him. At this moment, Matt suddenly regretted his previous choice. If he hadn't taken care of the consortium's business, wouldn't the chaos in New York be happening right now? Finding what Wilson was hiding was important, but the chaos that was happening before his eyes was taking a toll on civilians. There are even pregnant women and children. Matt also saw a police officer shot. Although these were not killed by Matt, he always felt that these tragedies were inseparable from him. He only thinks about the evidence he wants about Wilson, but ignores the impact the other person can make. Now he doesn't know what to do. Continue to catch the people of the joint company? Is it still meaningful? The world in front of you is like this. Matt was really confused, but just then, his communicator rang. It was the SHIELD special liaison given to the other party by Nick Fury. He hurriedly connected, and then a female voice came from the other side. "Newcomer, you are not a small mess. Who are you?" "To put it simply, I am now your boss. My name is Natasha, and I am also from SHIELD. "Yes, Miss Natasha, do you have any instructions now?" Matt was a little nervous after saying this, and then Natasha said. "You go to the parking lot of the joint company now. There should be a van for transporting the kidnapped people, you go and check it. Okay. Matt's figure then immediately went to the parking lot of the United Company. On the other side, the top floor of the Union building. Natasha smiled and said to the man with glasses in front of her, "Thank you for your cooperation." Then she slowly withdrew her matching gun. Today's second change. Episode 76. By the time Matt arrived at the Associates' parking lot, the vehicle transporting the kidnapped had already left 4 hours earlier. 4 hours ago. This made Matt immediately glance at the time. He quickly identified one thing. That is, the time when the vehicle drove away basically coincided with the time when he intervened in this matter. That is, when Matt first saved that group of homeless men. He was already exposed. Realizing this, Matt couldn't help but feel chagrin at his recklessness behavior. He should have taken the form of a covert investigation. At this moment, Natasha's figure came out of the darkness. She glanced at the scene and immediately understood. It seems that it's late in the evening, hey. Matt wanted to say something, but Natasha ignored him and called Nick Fury directly. "Fury, we're here for the evening. Wilson has already moved people away. His destination is a suburban construction site in Massachusetts. Can you send someone over there to see what the situation is?" Natasha's words annoyed Nick Fury. "What's wrong? Is there any resistance?" "You know, the United Corporation is very large. There are too many people involved in our government, and I have just received news from Congress about the chaos in New York this evening. They only characterized it as an ordinary chaos, and they are not allowed to send out the National Guard and other official forces to help suppress the chaos. And they will monitor the various official forces in real time." "Understood, but do we have S.H.I.E.L.D. also subject to this?" "Yes, Pierce and I spoke on the phone just now, and S.H.I.E.L.D. can't make any moves tonight." "Oh, this group of officials is really a nest of snakes and rats. It seems that Wilson's power is really unfathomable. Pierce is also helpless, the pressure from above is too much. Well, it seems that it can only be left to me and the newcomer. Good work, you guys." After hanging up with Nick Fury, Natasha told the general situation. This made Matt disappointed again with his own government. At the same time, it also allowed him to see Wilson's true strength. The other party is simply an invisible cancer lurking in this country. "So what now?" Matt asked. Natasha flicked her hair and said dashingly, "What else can I do? Follow along." Then she came to a motorcycle. She looked at Matt, who was still a little stunned to the side, and frowned slightly. "I've heard Fury say that your body is special, just running faster than an ordinary car. You should be able to, right?" "Okay, then I'll chase it." Matt's voice fell, and then he chased the van at full speed. Seeing this, Natasha also started the motorcycle and rushed away. The two gradually left New York. Behind the two is New York, the capital of chaos that is braving fire and gunfire. Wesley walked into Wilson's makeshift room again. Everything on this evening was like a war. It was too chaotic, and there were too many accidents, and from time to time Wesley was shocked in his heart. "Mr. Fisk, our building has been invaded, and surveillance shows that they have gone after the truck transporting the homeless man." Wilson frowned slightly. "Invasive? Who invaded?" According to the surveillance footage, it was a woman dressed in black, and then Daredevil. Wilson fell silent when he heard this. A look of anger and violence appeared on his face, making him look extremely terrifying. "What a bunch of trash. How long until the transport van arrives?" "About 2 hours." "How many people are on it?" 403 people. This is the first vehicle to set off, and it is full of homeless people. Fact. When he heard that the number was so far from the 1,000 he wanted, Wilson's anger was like a volcano erupting, and he slapped the table fiercely, and then said, "Let them speed up, they must arrive within an hour, and at the same time inform the security forces currently here, ready to fight Daredevil and that woman." Although the only people who came to chase the truck were Daredevil and Natasha, Wilson would not underestimate them because of this. Lion fights rabbits, also with all your strength. What's more, Daredevil's deeds really made Wilson have to guard against it. "Yes, Mr. Fisk." Wesley immediately went down to set up. Wilson walked back and forth in the room. His look was extremely bad. Obviously everything was going smoothly, all damn Daredevil. Wilson now wants to pull Matt's intestines out. At the same time, his brain was constantly thinking about who the woman was. So he made a phone call to explain it all. The other party immediately responded and promised to give Wilson an answer later. A moment later, the man called again. He said only 3 words, and this made Wilson think. SHIELD? He hadn't heard much of the official organization's name before. But it seems to be a little impressed. Anyway, Wilson hated SHIELD anyway. An hour later, the convoy transporting the kidnapped homeless man finally arrived. Wilson's deterrence forced them to step on the accelerator. Upon arrival, Wilson immediately ordered the men to enter the cave. Although the homeless people were afraid of the strange cave, they did not dare to resist under the threat of real guns. Wilson followed suit. In the infinite darkness, Wilson followed the last group of homeless people with a flashlight in his hand. His oppressive body is even more feared in this deep and dark cave. Especially when the light source of the flashlight is unevenly distributed on his facial muscles. That feeling of fear is simply a monster from some kind of horror story. None of the homeless people dared to look back. They didn't even dare to slow down. 403 homeless men walked in this dark cave, but there was no sense of congestion at all. In the silence, he finally came to the mysterious partial trilateral octahedron. The eyes of those homeless men at this moment were attracted by the mysterious crystal, and even the fear of Wilson disappeared. The homeless man standing in the front even slowly stretched out his hand towards the trilateral octahedron. But before he could touch it, a large hand like a stone cast held his arm. Then look at the big hand. The crisp sound of clicking sounded immediately. The screams of the homeless man continued to echo. This scene made all the homeless people who had just lost their minds come back to their senses. They looked at the homeless man who was lying on the ground and rolling around in horror and fear, and infinite sadness surged in their hearts. But there was one strange thing that no one present noticed. That is, the screams of the homeless man just now did not actually reach outside the cave at all. There seems to be some mysterious and weird rule in this cave that isolates the movement from it. Wilson pressed his hand into the trilateral octahedron while looking at the homeless men in front of him. He tried to make a deal with the terrifying being behind the crystal. He hoped that he could sacrifice the 403 homeless men in front of him first, and that the remaining 597 people would give him 6 hours to gather them. In the end, the existence behind the trilateral octahedron granted his request. But the corresponding price was Wilson's 1-year lifespan. A year's lifespan is exchanged for 6 hours of sacrifice for an extended time. Wilson agreed without hesitation. Immediately afterwards, I saw that the triangular octahedron emitted a strange and vigorous, dark red light. The light turned into a curtain to cover the homeless people in front of them, and then something terrifying happened. Just look at the group of homeless people melted like candles, no screams can be heard, they are like dying in some other space. This scene made Wilson's hair stand up when he saw it, and his pores were full of fear of this trihedron. And at this moment, a voice that Wilson will never forget in his life sounded. It was the voice of the incarnation of the god, named Nyarlathotep. There are still 597 left. The squeaky voice of the night devil echoed in Wilson's heart. In a trance, Wilson seemed to see the dream scene again. The tall and terrifying night devil stood in front of him, squeaking and laughing, as if mocking the whole world. The third change today. Episode 77. After more than 2 hours of chasing at full speed, Matt and Natasha finally arrived near the construction site outside Massachusetts. They stood behind a relatively hidden rock and observed the construction site in front of them. The site was brightly lit, defensive measures were set up everywhere, and the high points were full of gunmen in special costumes. Simply from the appearance, it can be seen that they are well trained, no less than ordinary special forces. Shit, there is even a rotary machine gun. Natasha saw the horrific killers that were supposed to be on the construction site. It was the M134 rotary machine gun that was powerful enough to penetrate helicopters once launched, and it was widely used in the American military. And because of its fierce firepower, it has another name. Vulcan cannon. It seems that this is destined to be a very dangerous battle, but what is hidden in this? Wilson would defend here like this. Natasha's eyes showed a bit of suspicion and confusion. Matt, on the other hand, was drawn to the dark cave in the center of the construction site. There was a voice inside him telling him not to go near there. This voice seems to come from the yellow seal. This made Matt feel an unknown fear and worry. The great deity that existed behind the yellow seal was giving him such a veiled warning, which was enough to explain the horror in the cave. Can we ask for some more support? Matt asked towards Natasha. But his answer was met with a crisp shake of the other party's head. This made Matt's heart heavy. What's wrong with you? Natasha saw that something was wrong with Matt's face. My gut instinct was telling me that there was something terrible in that cave. Natasha didn't take Matt's intuition as a joke, and she looked at the dark cave with a slight frown. Under such a dark night, the darkness of the cave far exceeded the black sky outside. There is not a trace of light in it. It is like a black hole active in the universe that swallows the light easily. Natasha took out a pair of glasses, and the night mode of the glasses she put on activated automatically. She tried to observe the cave through infrared light. But the weird thing is, even Shield's high-precision night vision device can't see the slightest bit of that cave. It's still dark. This made Natasha's heart sink. The experience of constantly experiencing strange and bizarre events in recent times has made Natasha sensitive to the current situation. She immediately reported it to Nick Fury, who was far away in S.H.I.E.L.D. After the other party learned about it, he immediately realized the seriousness of this incident. "I'll ask Clint to support you and Matt won't be exposed for the time being." Good. After hanging up with Nick Fury, the two wanted to lurk quietly. But suddenly, out of nowhere, a bird fluttered and flew in front of the two. Its movement inadvertently attracted the guards who were patrolling. And when the guard's gaze was cast here, Natasha knew she was going to be exposed. Shit. Can't hide anymore. She cursed secretly and then opened fire first, and the bullet spun and flew out with a bang. But when the bullet hit the guard, the other party did not fall to the ground, but only took a few steps back. And even body armor? Natasha knew it was going to get into trouble next. Sure enough, the construction site was already noisy at this time. Her gunshot directly opened the curtain of this battle. Several searchlights shone in unison in the direction where she and Matt were hiding, followed by countless bullet storms. The tinkling sound kept ringing on the stones in front of Natasha and Matt. The two lay down behind the stone, just using it as cover. "Matt, you go out to attract enemy fire. I'll find an opportunity to blend into the construction site." Good. Wait a minute, can you resist ordinary bullets? Can you carry the M134 rotary machine gun? I don't know about that, but I'll try to get out of the way. After briefly explaining the task to Matt, Natasha was ready in place. Then Matt rushed over, and the guard's bullets immediately shot at Matt, along with the sound of heavy revolver machine gun starting. Buzz. Almost instantly, several tongues of fire symbolizing death erupted from the muzzle of the rotary machine gun. The terrifying rate of fire of 6,000 revolutions per minute is enough to tear apart everything that dares to stand in its way. Even though Matt's body has been strengthened, he still does not dare to face this terrifying human killer. He struggled to walk through the woods outside the construction site. But despite this, the bullets of the revolver machine gun still followed. Seeing that Matt had drawn the enemy's gaze away, Natasha immediately rolled out from the other side of the stone. Her black outfit became her best disguise. After some sneaking, she managed to get to the location of a rotary machine gun. She tackled the enemy here in 3 or 2 strokes, and then took over the machine gun in front of her. Buzz. The storm of death began to shoot at the defenseless enemies. The body armor worn by the guard could not stop this terrifying rotary machine gun for even a second. Almost instantly, broken limbs and pieces of minced meat flew in this construction site. When the guards were shocked and panicked, Matt's figure approached quickly, and he burst into the limits of his flesh, solving a piece of guard in the blink of an eye. In an instant, a scuffle broke out in the construction site. And in the temporary dwelling on the edge of the cave. Wesley and Wilson listened to the sounds of battle coming from outside the house, and they looked different. What a nasty bug. Wilson looked at the scene in the construction site with an extremely cold face. There was no fear on his face, and a man who had achieved the throne after countless battles would not be afraid of any battle. "Mr. Fisk, are we going to evacuate next?" Wesley asked. Compared with the indifferent Wilson, his face could not help but be a little panicked. Responding to him was Wilson's sneer. "Evacuate? No, who said we were evacuating?" Then he took out a remote control, and Wesley couldn't help but be shocked when he saw this. Then I watched Wilson decisively press the remote control. With the moment the red button was pressed, explosions erupted one after another in the construction site. Boom! Countless steel and stone blocks were blown into the sky, and the surging fire flooded everything like a flame demon from hell, and the violent shaking was like an earthquake. Everything that was still in battle just now was completely invisible at the moment. When the dust was blown away by the wind, the scene of the construction site finally appeared in front of Wilson and Wesley again. The current construction site is a ruins that have been ravaged by giants. No one who can stand will see one. Some are just collapsed and broken stones. Under this bleak moonlight, a breath of death that penetrated deep into the soul was coming from the ruins. But at this moment, suddenly there was movement from the ruins. Then Wilson and Wesley saw the man who rose from the rubble. Under the bright moonlight, it could be clearly seen that the man's body was in an extremely bad state. Blood flowed wantonly, the flesh and skin turned out were bloody and twisted, and a broken steel bar plunged deep into the opponent's abdomen. These injuries were enough to kill any ordinary person. But in that man, all this was nothing more than firewood that ignited the anger of the other party. The vitality is really 4.1 tenacious enough. Wilson looked at Matt with a slight squint, his eyes showing a bit of cruelty and violence. Then he slowly took off his suit. The dark shirt inside is tightly wrapped around the majestic muscles. Wesley, when the vehicle transporting the people arrives, you let them all wait for me in front of the cave, and when I solve Daredevil, I will go to you. Yes, Mr. Fisk. Wesley said with a smile. Wilson then slowly walked out of the room. His figure also appeared above the ruins. His eyes collided with Matt in the distance, and both of them had anger and killing intent burning in their eyes. Wilson. Matt under the moon roared at Wilson. In response, he was Wilson's cold drink. Daredevil, make a break. Today's fourth change. Episode 78. Under the Dark Night. At this time, the site outside Massachusetts had been bombed. A large and a small figure is engaged in fierce hand-to-hand combat. The difference in size between the two is like that of a giant bear and a hyena. But amazingly, the speed of the giant bear's figure is not slow at all, and the hyena's figure is not lost to the giant bear in terms of strength. Bang bang. With a continuous and loud sound of blows, fist marks were constantly appearing on Wilson's body. Every punch from Matt was enough to kill an ordinary person on the spot. But Wilson relied on his muscles to carry it abruptly. However, his expression was clearly enduring the pain. At the same time, Matt's body is not good. Previous injuries caused by violent explosions have not yet fully recovered. Even though his self-healing ability is far beyond ordinary people, this moment is still a little slow. Those curly and torn flesh was tormenting Matt all the time. But what pained Matt the most was not the cracked flesh on his body, but the puncture hole in his abdomen. The broken steel bar that had previously been violently impacted by the airflow in the explosion suddenly penetrated his lower abdomen. If Matt guessed correctly, the steel bar just 26 pierced his right kidney. Even though he had just withstood the pain and pulled it out, now with the fierce battle with Wilson, the wound not only did not have a tendency to heal, but gradually expanded. Without these conditions, Matt can guarantee that he has knocked Wilson down at this moment. But now there is only a stalemate with the other side. At the same time, Wilson's physical strength also shocked Matt. The power of the fist from Wilson was almost like a car crashing into Matt. Those heavy reinforced concrete stones were like paper paste in front of each other. The speed of the opponent is also extremely agile and fast. It is completely out of line with the huge figure of the other party. It was hard for him to imagine that a human being could evolve to this point through exercise. Did the other party really not experience any mutations? Bang! A violent confrontation made both of them take a few steps back. But compared to Wilson's 3 steps, Matt is only 1 step backwards. Wilson wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and then spat out a mouthful of blood, mixed with some blood-red tissue fragments. Daredevil, I must admit that you are indeed the most difficult opponent in my battle to date. You're not bad either. The two were panting violently at this time, and there was still killing intent in each other's eyes. If you want, I can make you my second in command, and from now on I will share power equally with you. The words from Wilson made Matt sick. He expressed his attitude directly with a mouthful of spit. It's a pity, then you can only die here today. Wilson said and lunged over, his thick fist smashing into Matt like a violent storm. Just as Matt was struggling to cope, a solid knee hit Matt's waist. That's where the rebar is penetrated. The severe pain made Matt couldn't help but scream, and the blood wrapped in the fragments of organs inside the body was washed out. A sudden loss allowed Wilson to seize the opportunity. He kept attacking Matt's lower abdomen wounds. Under the continuous blows, more and more blood gushed outward, and the violent blood loss made Matt's eyes black. The originally evenly matched scene turned into a one-sided crush because of one of his mistakes. Wilson took advantage of the victory to pursue. He picked up the steel bars on the ruins and pierced Matt's body directly. But that's not enough. Immediately followed by the second, third, and fourth. Moments later, 8 intertwined steel bars erected Matt's body above the ruins. His arms, legs, torso, all had steel bars through it. This left Matt unable to struggle if he wanted to, unable to even speak. His blood dripped down the steel bars. Like the saints in Christianity who were sentenced to death. Under this moonlit night, this scene has a strange artistic beauty. Daredevil, if you lose, you will die here, but don't worry, out of respect for you, I will give you a grand funeral. Wilson looked at Matt, who couldn't even speak at the moment, and said. Then he slowly turned around and walked in the direction of the cave, where the remaining 597 people had arrived. They are being held hostage by armed men led by Wesley. When Wilson's bloodied figure slowly came to them, the panic in their hearts rose to an extreme. Wesley, you're doing a great job. Wilson complimented Wesley, but just then his eyes suddenly darkened, which made him almost unsteady on his feet. Mr. Fisk. Wesley hurriedly stepped forward to help, but Wilson immediately regained his feet. It's okay, it's just that the battle with Daredevil was a little too fierce just now. Wilson gasped. He's in bad shape right now. It can be said that he is now relying on the obsession in his mind to force himself. How about you take a break first? No need. Wilson had to hurry now, he had made a pact with the Night Devil. Seeing this, Wesley stopped persuading. Then Wilson led the remaining 597 men into the cave. Wesley and the others were on guard here. In one corner of the ruins, Natasha, whose thighs are pressed against concrete, is talking to the incoming Hawkeye. Barton, Wilson led someone into that cave. I don't know what he's going to do, but it's definitely not going to be a good thing. You must stop him as soon as possible. Received, Natasha, don't talk first, save your physical strength, I'll come. Communication then hangs up. Natasha returned her gaze to her pressed thighs, her face full of impatience and pain. She slapped the ground hard, then looked at Matt, who was strung in midair. The other party's body no longer trembled. Obviously, it only takes a few more moments for the other party to die completely due to excessive blood loss. Natasha's only hope now is Hawkeye. High in the sky at this time. A SHIELD-labeled Quinn fighter is stationed here in a stealth position. With the sound of steam from the pressure relief valve, its hatch slowly opened. A man in a rappelled suit and a black mask was standing on the edge of the hatch. Exactly Hawkeye. He nodded to the crew beside him and jumped straight down. The raging high air flow made his clothes shave. But just a moment later, he approached the ruined construction site on the ground. For 93, he pulled his hand back, and the black rappel uniform erupted from the bottom with some kind of air flow to stop his rapid descent. Since Tony Stark and Nick Fury officially reached a cooperation, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s technology has also ushered in a big leap. As he approached the ground, Hawkeye stopped the jet of air from the rapid surrender. His figure immediately tumbled to the ground. When his figure returned to its normal posture, a composite high-tech bow appeared in his hand. I'm here, Natasha. Hawkeye said nothing to the communication device, followed by a bow and arrow. With a swish sound, an arrow loaded with a special arrow had flown out at great speed in the direction of Wesley and the others. 2 seconds later, the arrow came to them. Then just look at the arrow flashed a blue light, and an ultrasonic wave that humans could not withstand suddenly burst out. Wesley and a group of armed men fell to the ground in pain and silence. Their faces were bruised and veins burst, and they looked extremely hideous and terrifying. And then, Hawkeye came to their midst. He wore a special mask to shield himself from the effects of ultrasound, and then he stuck an identical arrow into the ground. In this way, Wesley and the others would have to twitch on the ground for at least half an hour. That's enough time for Hawkeye to explore the secrets of the cave. Then he stepped into the darkness, without hesitation. It looked like it had been swallowed up by a giant mouth of the abyss. Today's fifth change. Episode 79. With his fast-moving pace, he soon came to the mysterious partial trihedron. In the complete darkness of the cave, the black clothes on Hawkeye's body are the best disguise. Wilson, who was in front of him, did not see Hawkeye. He was walking step by step towards the trilateral octahedron. He walked slowly with every step. The previous battle with Matt really affected him a lot. At this time, Hawkeye's attention is all on the mysterious partial trilateral octahedron. He keenly noticed the obsession and stupidity on the faces of the civilians who were staring at the crystal, which made Hawkeye immediately realize that the trilateral octahedron had some kind of demagogic power. It's like a statue of Cthulhu and the Codex Nact. Fortunately, the mask that Hawkeye was wearing at this time had the ability to isolate mental interference. He immediately tried to send the scene in front of him to Nick Fury through a tiny camera, but unfortunately the signal was strangely cut off. Fack. Hawkeye cursed in a low voice, and then he bent his bow and took the arrow. He quietly looked at Wilson in front of him. He wanted to see what the other party would do next. At this moment, Wilson had already walked in front of the trilateral octahedron. Emotions of joy, excitement, contentment, and so on appeared on his face, as if he was about to fulfill some kind of wish. He slowly touched his hand to the crystal, and the strange and exuberant dark red light emerged from the crystal again. When the light was about to envelop everyone, Hawkeye quickly shot an arrow in the direction of the triangular octahedron. Sincere. The arrow plunged into the stone pillar altar under the trilateral octahedron. Its tail was still trembling, but the arrow had erupted with blue light. Z. An ultrasound burst out beyond the frequency limit of the human ear. With the outbreak of ultrasound, Wilson and the nearby civilians all fell to the ground. This scene sobered up the civilians present, who looked at the scene in front of them in amazement and fear, and then they heard footsteps from behind. When the hawk-eyed figure slowly came out of the darkness, Wilson's eyes, which fell to the ground and convulsed in pain, were full of anger and killing intent. But Hawkeye didn't bother with them first, and he quickly evacuated the civilians who were not affected. In an instant, there were more than 100 people less square meters in front of the partial trilateral octahedron. This made the anger in Wilson's heart almost turn into substance and devour Hawkeye. Damn. Wilson struggled to look at Hawkeye and scolded. This surprised Hawkeye, who accidentally saw this scene. The ultrasonic arrows Tony gave him could paralyze even elephants. But Wilson in front of him could still open his mouth to scold him. Hawkeye was clearly aware of the horror of Wilson's body. He suddenly understood why Nick Fury had told him to be careful of Wilson before he set off. If this really clashes with the other party head-on, it is indeed very dangerous. But fortunately, now the other party has been shocked by ultrasound. Hawkeye didn't bother with him anymore. He continued to evacuate the civilians while giving them protective ultrasound devices. Otherwise, when they fled to the mouth of the cave, they would be shocked by the arrow that Hawkeye had inserted earlier. Seeing that there were fewer and fewer people in front of him, Wilson's eyes were gradually covered with red bloodshots, which was a manifestation of anger to the extreme. His hope of resurrecting Vanessa was thus taken away from his eyes. This made Wilson crush his steel teeth. He saw Vanessa's phantom in a trance, which smiled at him and hugged him, but it became shattered in the next moment. Nope. Wilson roared in a low voice of hardship and torment. Ultrasound caused his entire face to be bursting with vascular nerves, a terrifying situation that made him feel like a monster. Ha 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 ha, it seems that you didn't seize the opportunity. The ugly creaky hoarse sound sounded in Wilson's ears again. At this moment, the picture in front of Wilson's eyes changed. The scene from the dream reappears. The terrifying monster was crouching on a slender pillar and watching him. Its three-petal eyes burning with pitch-black flames carried endless banter, and the anger in Wilson's heart soared again. He looked at the Night Devil and said supplesively, "Please give me another chance, I will." "Ha ha ha ha, you have no chance, you are not destined to be able to resurrect your Vanessa." The sound of Night Devil's laughter made Wilson even open his eyes. Then he watched 2 blood tears run down his cheek. Wilson gritted his teeth and said with endless hatred and anger, "I beg you to give me the power to trample on everything." The Night Devil seemed not surprised at all, and it said in its ugly and evil words, "Well, the previous 403 lives should be regarded as the price of your exchange for strength." With the end of this sentence, the scene in front of Wilson returns to reality. Hawkeye in front of him was still evacuating civilians, and Wilson gritted his teeth to resist the brain interference from ultrasound. His fingers clasped the stone pillar altar under the triangular octahedron. And then little by little, I climbed up. His huge figure actually moved because of this. Hawkeye saw this scene and immediately realized that it was not good, and he hurriedly bent his bow and shot an arrow at Wilson again. Poof. The arrow pierced Wilson's palm, but it was also already late. His fingers finally touched the trilateral octahedron. While a soft sound suddenly came from the crystal. Immediately afterwards, it emitted a vigorous light that enveloped Wilson. Almost instantaneously, The sweat hairs on Hawkeye's body stand upside down. It was the wild genes that remained from humans that were wary of him. An unimaginable horror was coming from Wilson in front of him. He is being transformed by that light, which makes him feel no longer a simple human, but like a ferocious beast crawling out of the abyss. Hawkeye made an immediate decision, and he immediately ran towards the outside of the cave. Although he doesn't know what really happened to Wilson, he must call for support at this moment. Almost the moment he ran out of the cave, a rumbling vibration came from the cave. Then came an inhuman roar. Roar. The killing intent and anger contained in that roar made everyone who heard it feel terrified. Hawkeye immediately shouted at Nick Fury. Fury! Get Tony over now. Wilson may have turned into a monster. The moment he finished shouting these words, a large hand stretched out from the cave directly grabbed him. Although the big hand is still in the shape of a human hand, the surface of the big hand is surging with black blood vessels, and the volume is also several times larger. The severe pain made Hawkeye shout, but the next moment he was thrown by his big hand into the ruins in front of him. Bang! With a muffled sound, Hawkeye simply fainted. Then a monster 6 meters tall slowly walked out of the cave. His facial features barely have some of Wilson's appearance. Its surface skin was chapped and its blood-red and pitch-black colors intertwined in those cracks, making it impossible to tell whether it was blood or some evil dark substance. The skin on his body showed a state of blood vessels bursting at this time, but the blood vessels were not normal cyan, but constantly flowing black. And the most terrifying thing is his eyes. It was eyes burning with pitch-black flames, and the tyranny in them was vigorously trying to devour everything in front of them. He directly kicked off the ultrasonic arrow that Hawkeye had inserted at the mouth of this cave before. The convulsive Wesley gradually stood up. He looked at the monster in front of him, and although he was afraid, he still asked tentatively, "Mr. Fisk?" Then he saw the humanoid monster nodding slowly. Yes, the monster in front of you is none other than Wilson Fisk. Realizing this, Wesley's face showed an unusually rosy color. It was excitement and unparalleled excitement. "Wesley, let's go back to New York," Wilson said through gritted teeth. Underneath his words lies a sadness and anger. He wants revenge on that organization called S.H.I.E.L.D. If it weren't for them. At this moment, he had already seen Vanessa again. But at this time everything is already a dream. Today's first change.